Okay, we're live. Excellent. Welcome back. This is the eighth plot, my channel, and this is Book from Scratch, where you're going to watch me write a book from scratch. We've already done a lot of planning, given some writing advice about. Oh boy, that's a bad start. Anyway, about how to do some things in the writing process. Wow, I thought I had this whole live streaming thing down. It turns out I don't. Anyway, it's we've already done the planning. I've talked about how the planning should set you up to start writing. Some hints and tips about how to do that. The nature of this book, I've tailored this book so that I can speak about as much, like, all the different aspects of writing as much as possible. So the book is if you're new, hopefully you've gone and seen the other 16 episodes in this live stream so far. As you know, the book is broadly a fantasy book, but it's an anthology of different books. They're all the same characters going through. You have to kind of think of it like a TV series. So each episode is a smaller book within the bigger book, and all the stories are like telling the big one story. They're all interlinked. And each book in it is a different genre of storytelling, because I want to try and cover as much as possible. This is also about me learning it as I'm going, but I think that if you are a prospective writer, someone who wants to write their own story, if you watch someone write it out, type it out, you kind of make that biggest leap in trying to write your own story, which is always, I've got all these ideas in my head, but how does this translate to words on a page? So that's what this is all about. I'm going to give a quick summary before I start getting into it. I can't rehash everything, but this is what you need to know, okay? This is a fantasy series, and I've kind of blended together three of my favourite fantasy story sort of universes, like, because I want to kind of bring those out in this story, because a lot of writers tend to enjoy writing something similar to that they already like. So it's got a hint of Lord of the Rings in that it's epic in nature. It's got a hint of Dungeons and Dragons in the fact that it's about a group of adventurers who have different skill sets and they bring different things to the table. And it's a little bit, I think, of Terry Pratchett's sort of Discworld series, in that there's a slight how would you put it? Like maybe whimsical nature to it. Like Terry Pratchett's Discworld series is it's clearly sort of critiquing fantasy, while it's all fantasy, and it's talking about how like different philosophical aspects also affect our lives, and it tries to teach something new. And I think that's also within it. There's also a little bit of, not comedy, but there's like there's a very weirdness to it. Like the Discworld is a flat world on top of elephants on top of a turtle, and our universe is on the back of a giant cosmic snail that's wandering through that's just sliming its way through the universe. So this is clearly a sort of, this isn't like a normal world like Lord of the Rings is, which appears as a map on with proper geography. So, but that's what I want in my book, and you will write as you're sort of watching this whole series. This isn't about this is what you should write. This is how I've done it, why I've done it this way, with some hints and tips that you can apply to your own storytelling to get what you want out of it. And the big theme throughout all of this is that there's not a critique of fantasy, because I love fantasy, but this is a sort of critique of that idea that, like, I've gone for the epicness of Lord of the Rings, but I'm kind of critiquing something about Lord of the Rings, about how it's all about, there's the big bad guy, and this is prevalent in lots of stories, and he's incredibly dangerous, or it's incredibly dangerous, it's an existential threat, and everything is going wrong for the good guys. Like they have smaller armies, and they kind of win sometimes through just, in a sense, luck, having faith, and trusting in one another. And these are all positive things. I'm not critiquing these, but I thought what if the good guys did things slightly different that actually created a better situation for them when they faced the bad guy? And I thought, what if the heroes of my story started like fixing the world so that the bad guy got weaker? Because if you look at our world now, and this is being written in 2025, you've got a lot of dictators around, you've got a lot of fascists around, and they gain power and gain strength and do horrible, terrible things by manipulation and lying and gaslighting and like pretending to be good when they do bad things, and they accrue power and they manipulate and distort things just to get what they want, and it makes them more powerful as they go on, and they don't fix anything, because if they fix anything then there's no reason for them to be in power. So I thought that this theme should be, you what if the heroes started fixing things so that they lose power? So take Lord of the Rings, for example. If Gondor and Rohan and all the other things started actually just trying to help the orcs be better, then they would be. And I like that Rings of Power kind of touched on this, is that if orcs just had better lives, there's no reason for them to go to Sauron, which is why, in a way, Sauron makes their lives terrible, so they've got no choice but to side with him for that better life. I mean, orcs have menus, and orcs they make bread, so and like they have a life outside of the constant warfare, and why can't it be better for them? So if like Gondor and Rohan and Angmar and the elves and the dwarfs and the hobbits even just help the orcs, then Sauron loses his entire army, and he really needs that entire army. So that's kind of what we're going for. That's the theme of this book, where in every book in the series, if you look down here, there's our full listing. Sorry, it looks like a mess. I will throughout show the good guys actually making things better in this world, fixing the problems of this world, so that there's like less things that can be manipulated, that there's less people who are evil who can be turned over to their side. And this also is kind of a critique in some sense of how heroes become heroes, is that the final battle against the big bad, the Sauron kind of character, the Voldemort kind of character, the White Witch kind of character, is there, and it's going to be epic. I'm still going to try and make it epic. But after that comes the real battle, where the normal people, the normal adventurers who gain prestige and fame by defeating the big bad guy, they are angry that it was almost easy, and that no one is impressed by what they did because of all the other people that came together to knock away the bad guy's power and make it easier to defeat him. And so they go after our main heroes, who they blame for that. And that becomes the final battle. That in some ways it's like, in some ways, I think in our modern world, the reason why we never really defeat these bad guys is because we've got these people who think they're the good guys, actually also making things worse, and they have some expectations about how we should view them for what they're doing when they're not really helping. So what are we going to do today? We're starting to get writing. In my planning episodes you've seen before, there's a lot of I did a lot of planning, but it's not completely comprehensive, because I think, and here's a little tip for you, that you will discover the best way to do your planning and the best way to do your writing. I'm showing you how I do it. I'm going to touch on other ways that could work for you that don't work for me. There is no right or wrong way. In many ways, you just get what's in your head, your ideas, onto the page. That's the only goal. And therefore, I'm going to show you how I do it, talk about other ways to do it, and you figure it out what works best for you. And really, that's the most important thing to take from this particular episode, because I'm gonna start writing. I'm gonna do some planning in between it, because I haven't done all the planning. I don't do all the planning beforehand. I don't have everything out. because the truth is you're going to end up changing things. You are definitely going to change things as you write your book. And having learned that, I don't want to get hung up on, I must make this thing I came up with happen, even though other writing has changed what I want and it's even expressed itself better than what I originally planned. I don't want to get stuck in that mindset of what I planned has to happen. No, I want to stay a bit like fluid with the whole thing. I want to be able to change direction. But you also saw that I didn't even think of everyone's name, and I'll probably do that as I go and show you how I do it and talk about better ways to do it. So what are we going to do today? Well, I'm actually going to focus on a little bit of writing today. You're not going to see me type out a whole chapter. So the first book is the fantasy book. If you can look down here, can I make this bigger? Yes, I can. So over here is a sort of breakdown. Sorry, it's a mess again. Let's choose a colour. Here we go. Right, so the intro adventure, because this is a pure fantasy story, the first one's going to be fantasy, as you saw on that Word document. And then we're going to bounce throughout. And I might actually just leap from here and go straight to the comedy one if I feel that's better. Don't think that your writing will be terrible if you don't write it all out in sequence. You can, oh dear, what's happening there? You don't have to write in sequence. Don't feel that your writing will suffer if you write. You have to go chapter by chapter by chapter by chapter, bounce around. And in fact, it's really beneficial that you do bounce around, because you're going to get bored with writing your story. I'm sorry, it's true, it happens. And you might get writer's block. And one of the best ways to defeat writer's block is just to start writing, not like trying to do the slog of writing the thing that you really hate, but jump to something you really like, type that out, feel some enjoyment, and then you'll realize, I'm going to go finish that bit, so these two things link up and the story is finally going to work. But I'm going to start today with the intro adventure, this fantasy one, because it's absolutely necessary for the subject that we are discussing today. Now let's see if I can get this just to go back to where it was. Yes, excellent, it worked. Before I move on, I just realised I got a comment from Oscar Winters. Will you be doing sprints? Yes, I'll do. If I'm in the zone, you'll be watching me just continually type away. I'll try to explain what I'm doing throughout, why I'm deciding to do it this way, which is, again, hints and tips for you. Sometimes I'll do short bits, sometimes I'll do long bits. I'm trying to keep each episode under an hour, but it's probably going to have to be longer. If I feel like I'm in the zone, I'm just going to keep going, because I want those words from here onto here, there. That'll do. Anyway, our name, you've also commented, names are placeholders. Yeah, like the big bad guy, the Sauron of this this particular series is just called Bob for now. He needs a more appropriate name, and I don't like Bob for him. Bob's fine name, but I don't like Bob. Like, I don't want that kind of comedy in it where they go, and now meet the Dark Lord, Bob. Everyone would presumably laugh at that, but I don't want that. Excuse me, I don't want that. That's not the kind of comedy. But because Bob is a placeholder name, I will definitely change it. I won't go, now I have to call him Bob by the time I finish. No, I'll think up a proper name for him anyway. So what is actually today's topic? Well, the first thing I'm going to do, which does take some thinking about, which is why I probably won't be writing an awful lot today. Let's try and zoom in a bit more. A bit more. Too much. Anyway, what I'm going to be thinking of today is the first line. And again, you don't have to write the first line of your story first. Jump to the bit you want to write about. Write that first. It's completely fine. But I want to talk about first the first line of a story, and that's because it's actually quite a vital line. It is the first thing, more than likely, that your readers will see when they pick up your book. They'll be looking around a shop, and they'll go, "Oh, that's an interesting looking book," because unfortunately we shouldn't judge book by the covers, but we still do. Or maybe they've heard of it and they'll go, well, I've heard of this book. They'll take it off, they'll read the blurb. That'll be interesting, hopefully. And then they'll flick to they'll go past the copyright page, the acknowledgement page, because they don't really care who you're acknowledging, unless they happen to know them. And then they'll get to that first thing, they'll say chapter, and maybe you're one of those people who puts a little bit of poetry or quote from someone famous. That's fine. They can always work, because those poetic lines or a song that you've decided to write for your story or the quote from someone famous can always give your reader an idea of what's going on. But then they'll read that first line and it will draw them in. But I think there are not rules, more guidelines than rules, that could help you with your first line. And I think the most important one is this. Your first line, I think, should tell the readers not what's just going to happen next in this one chapter, but it should also say something about the book as a whole. In other words, your first line should be relevant at the end of the story. Or speak to the theme in some way, so that the first line is resonating throughout the book. Now, I don't think that's not true of all books. Now, I've got in front of me it's over here where I am, whatever, a list of some great lines from books. So, and they don't all follow that rule, because I think it's like this. The first line should speak to the whole book in some way and resonate throughout, but it can also resonate for the first bit of the book, the first chapter. In some ways, your first line should be relevant beyond the first line. I think that's like the most important rule. And obviously, the next thing it needs to do is be incredibly... it needs to really draw the reader in. It can't be boring. It can't be just something like a common starting word. You probably don't need a great first opening line on the second book in your series, because your readers are already engaged, but it at least should draw someone in. So here's a couple of really good lines. So I'm actually grabbing this from a website that's got a list of them. Fahrenheit 451, if you don't know, it's all about burning books which the government doesn't like. Kind of relevant to today's society still, for some reason. So the first line is, it was a pleasure to burn. I'm going to do some spoilers here. That is a great opening line, because A, it introduces you to the character, who is the POV character throughout, or for most of it. It's talking about how, like, the society at large is completely almost fine with the idea of burning books. It's relevant throughout, because the main character changes their perspective on this. So it's a pleasure to burn. He loves his job. He loves what he's doing, and that changes throughout the novel. So that means that it's resonating throughout, and it's no longer relevant to him at the end. He's completely reversed it. So the first line is there at the beginning, and it means something at the end of the story. Here's another one. This is from Rebecca by Daphne. I should have said Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. It's her first line in Rebecca is, "Last night I dreamt I went to Mordelay again." I think I said that right. Now, this is a book all about a character who's wed this guy who has this fantastic place called Mordelay? Who cares? And, well, fans of Daphne du Maurier do. I apologise. Anyway, the reason why this is a great line is that it kind of introduces you to how the main character thinks about this incredibly important place. We wonder, what is this place? Why is she dreaming of it? Is she dreaming it because it's horrible? Is she dreaming of it because it's good? Is it fascinate her? Is it scaring her? Is she anxious about it? And you don't know in that first line. Maybe there's a hint, because if you dream about it, then maybe that means you're looking forward to it. But this line also resonates throughout the whole story. You get the sense that she dreamt about this place. And spoilers, it becomes a source of certainly anxiousness, worry, and conflict. But at the end, it's still resonating, because the main POV character has now settled with this place and all the secrets that came with it, and in a way she's still dreaming of it at the very end. But this is also a good opening line because it's attracting you into it. Let's keep going. The Hobbit In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. Now, I think this weakly resonates throughout the whole story because while the Hobbit is seen from the POV of a Hobbit, Bilbo Baggins, it leaves away his Hobbit. No, yeah, it's like this line is here for you as a fantasy reader to go, "What's a Hobbit?" And then you keep reading, and you think, "I want to be a Hobbit." That's what you think when you learn about the life of a Hobbit. But it does kind of, I think it weakly resonates, but it does resonate through the whole story because it's all about the Hobbit. But this first line doesn't really tell you anything about why a Hobbit is crucial. It's really just introducing a POV and a new kind of fantasy being, so to speak. So this one comes with mystery, but also when if it tells you it lives in the ground, first off, you're going to have to go, well, is it a creature? And then you find out it's a more humanoid character. So a halfling, like a gnome, not gnome, but like a halfling in classic fantasy. But here's the thing, even if it was a creature, I think because of the way children's books are written, like picture books, we actually associate living underground as being cozy, because we've seen all those picture books where they live underground, but it's a house, and it feels safe, and it feels cozy, and that's exactly what being a hobbit is like. So it's also kind of like, ooh, I really do want to be a hobbit. Call Me Ishmael from Moby Dick. Why is that a great line? Well, for one thing, it's very simple. Call me Ishmael. And I think you're encouraged to read it like that. Like, call me Ishmael. Like the person who's writing your book, your narrator, is literally being incredibly inviting and friendly. And so this is a nice guy. I'm going to keep reading. But it probably doesn't resonate throughout the rest of the story. I mean, what's said there, call me Ishmael, doesn't really mean anything. It certainly has nothing to do with the white whale and Ahab. It's just a very simple, punchy, and it feels very unique. I find it hard. Like, no one can actually copy that. No one else can just start a book, say, you can call me Sally. It kind of feels like, oh, you're just copying Herman Melville. And then, so no one can do the whole call me whatever kind of line. No one can just introduce themselves like that anymore without having that obvious reference to Moby Dick. And so maybe that line is just so good because it's so unique. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Alice was beginning to get very tired of sitting by her sister on the bank and of having nothing to do. Once or twice she had peeped into the book her sister was reading, but it had no pictures or conversations in it. And what is the use of a book, thought Alice, without pictures or conversations? It's a good opening line because, you get a little hint of... It's not an opening line, is it? No, it is. It's a whole opening sentence. You get an understanding of who Alice is. She's perhaps bored of the more cerebral things of reading a book, but not quite. You get a sense that she would rather have a book that was action and adventure, with more a sense of what it's about. And she also says conversations. So maybe she's having, her sister is not talking to her. She wants to talk. She wants to get to know people. That's interesting. We're learning so much about Alice in this. We understand, but we also get a head sense of the setting. You're sitting by the bank of a river. It's like on the bank. So they're not sitting on a NatWest, Santander, Lloyd's building. No, we instantly go to river. So we get, and also that one word, we also get that whole, they're by a riverbank. They're in a rustic, rural situation. That's nice. That brings you into the story. But it's also... the pictures or conversations, one of the most interesting things about Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is the conversations he has with weird and wonderful creatures who would not be out of place in a picture book. Does it resonate throughout the whole book? Probably not. This is a good example of the first line perfectly setting up and encapsulating the very beginning of the adventure, because it sets up how bored she is, which then sets up how she seeks out and follows the White Rabbit and seeks out the adventures that this strange creature must be a part of, and so she follows it. But I don't think it resonates throughout the whole book. That doesn't make it a bad opening line. It just means it's more focused on the beginning. But if it could have resonated much further throughout the whole book, it's better. Let's keep. Oh, that's a good one. This is from Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy its own way. That's a very complex sentence to read. Like, you might pick that up in a book and read it and go, you probably would go, that kind of makes sense, but it doesn't. What is this about? And so you start reading. Maybe you reread it a few times, and then you'll go, because you finally get what it's talking about. And then you think, I feel like I learned something. What else is there to learn from this book? And I think it's true to say that this resonates throughout the whole story, because it's a diverse story about Anna Karenina, her love affair, and where it's going, and the unhappiness or the complicated nature of families is prevalent throughout the book, and it always goes back to this very first line about happy families, they're all the same. But every unhappy family is unique, in a sense, by saying unhappy in its own way, which kind of suggests that you shouldn't put down this book and go find a book about a happy family. Stick with this, because you've never read this story before. Right, I think we can stop there, because I think there's a few good examples of I mean, there's loads of great first lines here. In fact, go and study first lines in the book, and you'll get a sense of how they really do introduce a lot with very, very little, but also speak to the theme of the story and catch your attention. So what I'm doing today, it's going to be tricky, I feel. I need to get this first line down for this story. So let's. What are you doing to me? Anyway, no, that's the themes. So I'm just trying to find the notes I had on that fancy. Here we are. Now, I'm not going to tell you how this all works as opposed to planning. Go watch the episode it happened in. I think this was like the third or fourth episode. But let me just recap for my own self how this first line should. So my first line, it's going to need to. In fact, I will just make this bigger. Go to the end and start a new fresh page. Right. This first line is going to have to do the three things. So resonate. Crying out loud. Needs to resonate. To engage. I'll put as like engage the reader. And three. So it needs to resonate. Needs to engage the reader. It also, sorry, as I said, it needs to sort of introduce. That's the way I'll summarize it. Introduce. It needs to at least say something about introduce. It needs to say something to the reader about the world that they're entering. Even Call Me Ishmael, like it doesn't resonate. Call Me Ishmael doesn't resonate, but it does engage the reader, and it does sort of introduce something about your POV character, the person who does most of the speaking. In Hole in the Ground There Lived a Hobbit, sort of resonates. It engages the reader. It definitely introduces, because it says meet the Hobbit. Okay, I need to find another one quickly. Let's find a good one. Oh, It Was the Day My Grandmother Exploded, which is The Crow Road by Ian Banks. It was the day my grandmother exploded. Definitely engaging with the reader, but doesn't quite introduce much. Probably doesn't resonate. Like, I just now need to... Okay, bad example. I need to find an example of one that does all three. Oh, hang on. 1984 by George Orwell. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. Definitely resonates, because the idea of, like, what's engaging the reader there in that line is clocks don't strike 13. Well, they kind of do. They strike 1, but clocks only have 1 to 12, so that's already weird. You don't what are you talking about? So that's engaging. It's definitely introducing the world, because it's like that. Maybe it's not introducing. It is introducing the world because this is an upside down, topsy turvy world. You might go, what does that mean? Of course, in here it's all about surveillance. So it's all about something that's very quirky in the wrong way. Like, you don't have clocks with 13 on them. So that's definitely introducing, and it definitely resonates, because the whole, like, the cold, the bright coldness of April, and a clock that strikes 13 are completely something we can't even get our heads around today. Still resonates later on in the book, because at the end of the book, spoiler, the main character is still living under a constant surveillance and a totalitarian world. And if I moved you to a world where clocks strike 13, you would feel under constant pressure. So 1984 does all three, and that's what I need to get in mind. So how to do it? So that's the question. So it needs to resonate with them. So what I really need to do is get the theme into. I need to get the theme into the first line. It needs to be the engaging the reader. Now I've chosen that there is a certain amount of fun in the stories, with some seriousness and coupled with the epicness of it. So if it's fun, then I think it should be a bit crazy. It should be a bit. Is that weird? Yes, it's going to be a bit weird. So it's not going to feel normal when it happens. And I need to introduce the reader, which means I'm going to have to mention a main character. So, okay. So you can probably see that what I've done is I've figured out what I need. I've extrapolated it a bit more, that in order to make it resonate, I'm going to keep the theme in there. In order to gauge the reader, I've chosen what's going to attract them to keep reading, and I've decided to mention the main character. Like in 1984 line, it was a bright cold day in April when the clocks were striking 13. You don't get the main character, but instead you introduce the oddness of the world. I've chosen to mention a main character, but do I instead want to imply something else entirely? Well, kind of got no choice here. I'm going to stick with this for now and see where it goes. Let's shrink that down. Right, mention a main character, etc, etc, etc. Let's go here. Right. Just so you guys know, the theme is it's all about, the theme is all about a different solution to like the common way fantasy universes go, because it's all about solving the problem at hand rather than like having a big massive like fight about it. So rather than fighting the orcs to solve the problems of Middle Earth, you help the orcs, and because like fighting the orcs in Middle Earth doesn't kind of work. They go away, they come back, but if you solve their problems, they don't tend to fight against you as much. So it's a need to talk about in this first line how different solutions work better. Solutions. So about my doctor-like hand. I'm not a doctor, but I'm not great with I've been typing for so long, my handwriting is terrible. Different solutions work better. Need to engage the reader, so it needs to be I think because it's quite a lot of action in this story, it should also be like a bit action based. Like the attractiveness of the first line should be about like something very physical should be happening, because that's prevalent around the book. But also, this is going to link back into here, is that the action is prevalent around the book, but it's also talking about how it shouldn't be like fighting action, like so it should be action orientated, this first line, but that will speak to the entire theme of the book, because the book is suggesting throughout that like having that epic fantasy battle is not always the solution, but it's going to be action based. I've decided that I'm going to start with Is it Huxton? Now, if you've watched the other episodes, you know that Fortis and Huxton are the primary main character POV characters. Huxton is a human. Fortis is a like a orcish kind of character. I don't know if I want to bother coming up with something brand new instead of using orc, but for now, he's an orc, because in this one the orcs are not the main bad guy cannon fodder. They're a sub race with their own thing. They have their good points and bad points. They're an established race rather than the classic bad guys in this particular one, and that's done for a reason to help the theme. But Huxton is the human, and fantasy stories are supposed to be somewhat seen through the human-ish character, because if you have a human-ish character in a story, then we relate to them, the readers, a bit more. Yeah. So Huxton's going to be the main POV character here, but I'm not going to do it from inside his head. He's not going to narrate this. I've decided to do third-person perspective, but he's going to be in some ways we're going to be in his mind when he speaks. So now I've got to take all of this and combine it into a first line of the story. Can't be too long, can't be too big. Okay. Now we got to get started. Oh man, we got to do the actual writing bit. Right. Okay, I'm going to experiment with something that just came to me that different solutions work better. I was thinking, Fortis was thinking about something his dad taught her. Okay, hang on a minute. Fortis, so I've already got the introduction. Hey, here's the characters. Fortis was thinking, as he stabbed the name later, started to wonder if this started to his problem. As he stabbed the, I'll put soldier for now. I won't capitalize it. Fortis, as he stabbed the shoulder in between here we go, between the joints of his armor. Actually, I'm going to go with it's just saying that while it is a soldier, Fortis, as he stabbed the soldier between the joints of his armor, started to wonder if this is the best solution to his problem, since it wasn't working. Dear me, I should really try and type a bit better. Sorry, I don't know why. You're seeing me do this because I've actually got the camera right in the way of the writing. Silly me. Right. Here's an opening line then. Fortis, so I've introduced the main character, as he stabbed a soldier between the joints of his armor. So that's giving you the action. It's telling you a bit about him, that he's absolutely capable of violence, but it feels a bit desperate as he repeatedly stabbed a soldier between the joints of its armor. Introduces, it perhaps makes a bit of mystery, like, wait, you said soldier, so why is it it? Shouldn't it be a he or she? Or other. Fortis, as he repeatedly stabbed the shoulder between the joints of its armor, started to wonder if this was the best solution to his problem, since it wasn't working. Do you put a comma there? Fortis, as he repeatedly stabbed the shoulder between the joints of his armor, started to wonder if this was the best solution to his problem, since it wasn't working. It shouldn't be his problem, it should be the problem. Oops, a daisy. Fortis, as he repeatedly stabbed the soldier between the joints of its armor, started to wonder if this was the best solution to the problem, since it wasn't working. No, it's got to be his. Okay. This ticks all the boxes. It's going to resonate because it's talking about how, like, clearly this sentence set up that he's in a fight, but it also clearly sets up that fighting isn't the best solution. Like, you think that stabbing someone through the joints of his armor would definitely is a great idea if you're fighting someone. Started to wonder if this was the best solution to his problem, and then also sets up the idea that straight away that like pure action fighting doesn't always work, and that will resonate throughout the whole book. So it ticks the resonating thing. Is it engaging? Well, if you're still watching this video and you can comment on it, I'd be really happy for you to say if you engaged. Started to wonder if it was the best solution to his problem. That's a bit weird and whimsical thing to think. You think, as you're stabbing someone, like, hopefully this won't be used in court against me at some point in the future. This is for a story. This is all fictional, by the way. Stabbing someone like that, and like obviously to hurt someone, would you really stop to think if this is the best solution to the problem? But that's kind of the mystery. Like, think, why isn't this working? And the reader will want to read on. Fortis, as he repeatedly stabbed the shoulder between the joints of its armour, started to wonder if this was the best solution to his problem, since it obviously wasn't working. No, that's too much telling rather than showing. By the way, when you write a book, you've obviously heard the great advice that you should show, don't tell. But you have to tell people, like I'm telling people right now, that Fortis is obviously stabbing someone and clearly wondering if this is the best solution. Like, you can't separate the two, otherwise your book pages will just be blank and you're basically saying to the reader, well, make it up yourselves. No, you have to obviously tell some things and let those things show. So I'm showing here that he's in a fight. He's repeatedly, so he's quite happy with violence. I'm also showing that he's a bit cerebral and thinking through it, and I'm obviously telling people that it's not working, but that's fine. Maybe I should show that it's... Can I show that it's not working? Started to wonder if this was the best solution. Maybe as there was no blood. The blade struck nothing. Sorry, this is supposed to be like after this bit right here. Fortis, as he repeatedly stabbed the shoulder between the joints of its armour, started to wonder if this was the best solution to his problem, as the blade struck nothing. Didn't need to rewrite that. Okay. I'm not going to edit my story like this. I'm just doing it now because it's the first line, and I kind of want the first line for me to be done today, kind of. So, when you see me write later, I'm going to obviously miss perfect opportunities to show rather than tell. But here I've realised that this is an opportunity to show, not tell, so I've done it. And made it a part because the first line is important. Fortis, as he repeatedly stabbed the shoulder between the joints of its armour, started to wonder if this was the best solution to his problem, as the blade struck nothing. You see, that as the blade struck nothing, I don't have to say that. That means it's obviously not working. So I don't need to say it, and I've shown it. But something's wrong with that sentence. It doesn't feel punchy. Also, like, you pick up a book and you go, Fortis. You read that line. What is Fortis? Maybe you'll keep reading. Is it too weird a name? Maybe I don't even need his name. As he repeatedly stabbed the shoulder between the joints of its armour, Fortis started to wonder. As he repeatedly stabbed the shoulder between the joints of its armour, Fortis started to wonder if this was really the best solution to his problem, as the blade... It should be the problem. No, because it's like soldier saying the problem seems less personal. As he repeatedly stabbed the shoulder between the joints of its armour, Fortis started to wonder if this was the best solution to his problem, as the blade struck absolutely nothing. But see, this is the problem with saying absolutely nothing, because nothing is nothing. You can't have. It's like something being very unique. You can't. I know it's a fine phrase just to say in casual conversation, but in writing you don't want to say very unique, because nothing can be very unique. So you can't strike absolutely nothing. Nothing is the absence of anything. So, maybe it shouldn't be struck nothing. I've got to show in a different way. This is the best solution to his problem. Since though, I don't want to get any longer than this. The best solution. Start doing it. The best solution to his problem. Has nothing happened? As the blade appeared to strike nothing. Hang on, its neck armor. As he repeatedly stabbed the shoulder between the joints of its neck armor. Hang on a minute. What I'm just doing now, neck armor. Bevel. Not doing that. So what I'm doing is just looking up what neck armor is called. A gorget. Oh, now I have a choice to make. Like, the problem I have now is that what I was thinking is if I put the proper name for joint neck armor is like, I didn't know that. But then again, I'm probably not an example of people who should know what it is. Between the plates of its neck armor. Joints? Plates? Yeah, plates actually. As he repeatedly stabbed the shoulder between the plates of its on its neck armor. Plates on its neck armor. No. Probably don't need neck armor. Fortis started to wonder this was the best solution to his problem, as the soldier barely. No, he wouldn't. Seemed not to notice. Okay, it's a little bit longer. Can I live with that? Okay. As he repeatedly stabbed the shoulder between the plates of its armour, Fortis started to wonder if this was the best solution to his problem, as the soldier seemed not to notice. Oh, I've mentioned soldier twice. That's not good. As his enemy seemed not to notice. As his... Not enemy. As his... Right. Trusty old... what's it called? Thesaurus. So not soldier, but... reject all. Let's go with enemy, but not enemy. That's thesaurus, the enemy word. Agent, opponent, foe. Foe. I like that. As his foe seemed to... Opponent, opposition, but too long. Rebel, invader, bandit. No, attacker. Attacker? No, because... adversary. The reason why I'm going with adversary is because that word seemed... As he repeatedly stabbed the soldier between the plates of its armour, Fortis started to wonder if this was the best solution to his problem, as his adversary didn't notice. Seemed not to notice his blade sinking into his flesh. No, because he's got no flesh. Right. Okay. I kind of like this. It clearly needs some more editing though. As he repeatedly stabbed the shoulder between the plates of his armour, Fortis started to wonder if this is the best solution to his problem, as his adversary seemed not to notice. Okay. That's option 1. Actually, no, it's technically option 2 if I do that. That's option 1. Can I go shorter? Okay, let's try and be a bit philosophical here. The best solution to a problem is the right one. Is the right one, not the easiest one. Okay, it's a bit of a weird thing to type out, maybe, but like, I'm trying to go shorter here, and I like the best solution to a problem is the right one, not the easiest one. Okay, that does the thing of resonate because it speaks to the theme that, like, in some ways, just attack and kill all of Sauron's orcs is the best solution to the problem. is not the best solution to the problem because it doesn't work so well in Lord of the Rings all the time. But it is the easiest option. Kill the orcs rather than talk to them, rather than convince them to join your side. It's more difficult, but it's actually better because if you did that, like imagine there's someone who had maxed out their charisma stats, just like met the orc guy and go, so let me get this straight. You've just been born, you've been given this, and you just want to go and fight? Isn't there something else you want to do? Don't you hate that maggoty bread that you've been eating for 3 miserable days? Wouldn't that guy, don't you want to start your own restaurant with your own menu? And it's like, and okay, there's still some, you have to sort of get them off the idea of cannibalism, but, you know, like first baby steps. So it kind of resonates. Is it engaging the reader? The best solution to the problem is the right one, not the easiest one. It's a bit philosophical, so it gets the reader thinking, and they may think, where's the guy going with this? Is it introducing anything? No, it's not. It's not introducing anything, really. What else could I do? By the way, it's the first line there is it's there because I've imagined in my own mind that the best way to start this book is to start with Fortis and Huxton, the main characters, getting their first taste of adventure, of being an adventurer, which is why they pursue it. But in a way, they follow the classic fantasy trope, almost the D&D fantasy, or the core of D&D, which is absolutely no problem. I'm just using it in this story to enhance the theme. Of you get your first taste of adventure and you want to do more, and you grow and you become more powerful and you defeat the villains by fighting them. Of course, D&D is all about finding other ways to do it, such as, I don't know, seducing the dragon rather than fighting them. But or maybe that's why I'm doing this, because I've played so much D&D. Anyway, the classic fantasy thing of just continuing to fight, and get more powerful to defeat the bigger and bigger villains. By starting here, talking about their first taste of adventure, which gets them to do more adventure, but then they move away from the classic pathway of adventure. So rather than going, we just got to kill the bad guys, fight them, find them, defeat them. At some point they'll be going along that tangent, and then they'll break away into their idea of, wait, why don't we just solve the problems that these bad guys are taking advantage of, or that has made these bad guys the bad guys. Okay, so that's why I'm starting off with this first line here. As he repeatedly stabbed the soldier between the plates of its armour, Fortis started to wonder this was the best solution to his problem, as the adversary seemed not to notice. It feels right. That line feels right. What else can I do? I can't go, call me Fortis. That's, as I said, that's not going to work. You see, I'm thinking about what happened in 1984. Is there some... Okay, there's lots of weird stuff in this universe. I mean, it's all on the back of a giant snail. So mentioning that isn't going to make this first line unique. So I'm not going to start the book with a line with it. It was a snowy day, and the great snail on who the world sits turned its gigantic eyes to stare at me. Okay, actually that's quite good. Oh, I made it worse by thinking of something I really like. What other way can I start this? Like, I want to start it with them fighting, and in this scene, I would explain. Actually, maybe I need the next line to make it better. So, as he produced it, seemed not to notice. The being didn't flinch. It didn't cry out. It didn't stop. As it attempted to crush Fortis and Huxton. Wait, I'm doing it the wrong way around, sorry. All this time. Sorry, it should have been Huxton. I mean, I said that. Crush Fortresses. Neck under its boot. It's Huxton. See, I'm imagining that Huxton sort of like grabbed the soldier from behind. He's like doing that from behind. That's what I'm imagining. As he repeatedly stabbed the soldier between the plates of its armour, Huxton started to wonder if this was the best solution to his problem, as his adversary seemed not to notice. The being didn't flinch. It didn't cry out. It didn't stop as it attempted to crush Fortresses. I've added an apostrophe where I don't need to. Fortresses. Oh, I did need to, but I did it in the wrong place. Fortresses' neck under its boot. Okay, maybe. Okay, that's a good second line. It's like, is that the best first line? It did not stop as it attempted to crush Fortresses. Okay. Is that going to be my first line? By the way, even if I decided to make that my first line, I don't need to. I can change it later. As he repeatedly stabbed the soldier between the plates of its armour, Huxton started to wonder if this was the best solution to his problem, as his adversary seemed not to notice. What else could I do? Could I start it anywhere else? I don't want to do a prologue, by the way. That's why I'm not going to do the first line, like introducing the bad guy. Let's try some other things. It was a lovely day when the raiders burned the village. Okay. This doesn't resonate. It kind of engages because there's a massive juxtaposition going on here. It doesn't introduce, so I don't want that. I like it. It was a lovely day when the raiders burned the village. Perhaps there's also too whimsical, so I'm not doing that one. His father used to say, Father used to say the hardest thing to do was change strategy. No, hang on. His father used to say that the hardest thing to do was change your mind. Change your mind about something when the normal solution? No. His father used to say that the hardest thing to do was to change your mind about something. Try something new. No, I can't have something twice. Change your mind about how to solve a problem. No. His father used to say the hardest thing to do was change your mind about something. Which was why Huxton was desperately trying. No, see, it's getting too long. What I was going for here is make it sort of sound both interesting because it's a sort of philosophical like statement. It resonates because it's talking about solutions and problems, and it introduces Huxton as a kind of guy who, like, when he's stabbing someone and it's not working, his mind is actually quite clear. It's not going to work. I don't think it's going to. It would end up being too long. Okay, running out of time. Ooh, we've almost run out of time. I'm going to stick it there. Right. Sorry, there wasn't a lot of typing today, but the first line is important, and this is actually going to help me move forward because now that's my foundation essentially. It's changeable. Maybe I'll realise later on there's another way to start it. Right. Here's the first line of this story. No title yet. Don't have to think of one. I would advise not to think of a title before you start writing. Otherwise, then your writing conforms to the title. I feel that you should create your title should be formed based on what the book is about, because then it can speak to the core value of the book, or one of the most important things that will be introduced, even if it's not throughout the entire book. So there's no title. I'm just calling this fantasy book. I just realised it is boot. No. Okay. And here's the first line. I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to read the second line as well, because I got to think, does this and that move on and fit? Chapter 1. Someone's opened the book and they read, as he repeatedly stabbed the soldier between the plates of its armour, Huxton started to wonder if this was the best solution to his problem, as his adversary seemed not to notice. As he repeatedly stabbed the shoulder between the plates of his armour, Huxton started to wonder if this was the best solution to his problem, as his adversary seemed not to notice. Right, I understand what's wrong here. What's wrong here is saying this is the best solution to his problem. I think I need to reword that to still give the idea that this is a problem and we need a solution, but maybe not to use those words. As his adversary seemed not to notice. The being didn't flinch, it didn't cry out, it didn't stop as it attempted to crush Fortis's neck under its boot. As Huxton clambered and held tried to kill it. Oh dear, it's hard. I think I need to add a qualifier for Fortis. No, I don't need to say kill it. He's obviously trying to kill it. I feel there's some detail lacking there. The being didn't flinch, didn't cry as it tended to. I feel like Fortis needs some description of who he is first. The being didn't flinch, it didn't cry out. It didn't. Oh no, hang on a minute. Fortis sieved as the half. No, as. Right now, I need to look at something. Armor, proper name for the boots. Right, does the what's it called? No, that's too much of a strange word. I was seeing like on a soldier's armor, what are the shoes called? Like them armored too, sabaton or soleret. That's just too much of a word that probably no one has heard of. Fortis sieved as he gripped. No, okay. This second thing isn't going to work because there should be a bit more on Huxton and what he's doing, rather than trying to introduce Fortis. Like the second line also kind of has to maintain what the first has done. I just realised. So, as he repeatedly stabbed the soldier between the plates of its armour, Huxton started to wonder if this was the best solution to his problem, as his adversary seemed not to notice. Fortis sieved as he added a little bit more. He had to do something though. The being was currently trying to crush his best friend's neck under his boot. Best friend's? Yes. Best friend's neck under his boot. Under its boot. Darn it. By the way, it's okay to mention soldier again now because there's enough gap. As he repeatedly stabbed the soldier between the plates of its armour, Huxton started... Maybe it shouldn't be soldier. Never mind. As he repeatedly stabbed the soldier between the plates of its armour, Huxton started to wonder if this was the best solution to his problem, as his adversary seemed not to notice. He had to do something, though. The being was currently trying to crush his best friend's neck under its boot. Fortis seethed as he gripped the soldier's... No, not boots. Not armour, because I've already mentioned armour. Neck under its boot. Fortis seethed as he gripped the soldier's shin. Okay, so someone's got like that. Heel. We'll go with heel. Heel and shin. And is tempted to push it off as he lay on the ground. Now, laying on the ground seems he's just like asleep. He was previously, as he was pinned to the ground. Fortis seethed as he gripped the soldier's head, heel, and shin, and attempted to push it off as he was pinned to the. As it pinned him to the ground. As it pinned him to the ground. Okay. Good. I'm going to stop there. I think that's fine for now. Like I said, it ticks all the boxes. Okay, hang on a second, just so you guys can clearly see. Right. Chapter 1. The opening line that is supposed to attach your attention and get the reader going. As he repeatedly stabbed the soldier between the plates of its armour, Huxton started to wonder if this was the best solution to his problem, as his adversary seemed not to notice. But then they would read on. He had to do something, though. The being was currently trying to crush his best friend's neck under his boot. Fortis seethed as he gripped the soldier's heel and shin and attempted to push it off as it pinned him to the ground. Good, that's fine. I think that's all fine. It's just that there's something wrong here. This is the problem. It just feels like the wrong words. As he repeatedly stabbed the shoulder between the plates of its armour, Huxton started to wonder if this was working, if this was working. Okay, it's risky. Actually, hang on a second. At the moment, I'm on quite a high. 12 is normal. Okay, so on a page, it's probably actually going to look like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Hang on a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, good. What I was just doing there was thinking, what's this going to look like on a proper book as it's out, the kind of size of the font. We'll do 1.5. We'll do first line. This is just my personal preference. This is not any kind of industry standard. Oops, daisy. Actually, I'll do double. Okay, so this is kind of what it would look like on the first page of the book. Like 12-ish, maybe 15 is the sort of standard, number of words on a page. So this is what that first line would probably look like printed out. And you know what? I've got this list of first lines in front of me. It's definitely longer than most. It's actually about the same length as something from 100 Years of Solitude. It's shorter than Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. It's probably slightly longer than Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Catcher in the Rye, it's about shorter. The Old Man in the Sea, it's probably shorter. No, longer. A Tale of Two Cities, it beats that. Is that a whole sentence in Tale of Two Cities? Goodness, it is. Anyway, lengthwise it works. As he repeatedly stabbed the shoulder between the plates of its armour, Huxton started to wonder if it was working, as his adversary seemed not to notice, and maybe he needed a new plan. Yes, it's better, but it's not great. Huxton started to wonder. As he stabbed the shoulder between the plates of his armour, Huxton wondered if it was working. Started to wonder if it was working at all. As his adversary seemed not to notice, and maybe he would need. Yeah, there you go. Now, does that? It resonates because it's talking about. It takes the obvious thing of just fight, attack, and says, "Oh, this isn't working. You're going to need a new plan," which resonates throughout the whole story because the new story is about doing things differently, like not doing the classic. Like, don't always try to fight the enemy. There's obviously going to be big battles in this book, but it's going to look different by the end. If your typical fantasy, like, your solution isn't always to fight. You need a new So this resonates. So it resonates. It engages the reader. It's a bit odd in that, like, the reader would be imagining, probably, if it's because I haven't said where Huxton is stabbing. It looks like Huxton is just doing that to someone in armor. That's probably what they would imagine, and then like it was like Huxton would be like, "Well, come on, then die," and maybe I need to do something different. So that's definitely a bit engaging for the reader because the reader's going to go, "That's unusual," and then it definitely introduces Huxton, and it kind of does impart to the reader that Huxton is the kind of person who isn't like just emotional about fighting, that he is capable of going, "I need to think this through, like he's going to kick me again, he's going to slash that sword," like he's thinking about it, which tells you something about Huxton, which is going to be true about his character going throughout the story. Okay, I'm going to have to stop there. I went over my hour. Darn. Anyway, first line, I'll do more typing in the future as you see me build, because what I now have to do is go all the way back. Oh my goodness, I have so many notes. Is this it? Yeah. So what I have to do is transform all those notes there. And if you look, if you've watched previous videos, what this is a sort of like breakdown. So the first bit is like a prologue or intro to Fortis and Huxton, the villagers' attack, stirring them to advance. And then it sort of breaks down a little bit further into what that looks like. And that's what I'm typing out. I'm kind of typing out what I've already got in my head about a point A goes to point B to point C to point D to point N. It flows. And that's what I'm trying to transform into words on the page. The kind of words that, make someone want to read the book, but also make this book interesting. Okay, I'm going to leave it like this. In the comments, if you think that if you're watching on TikTok is a good opening line, say so. If you want to give me ideas, I don't mind. I can't put you in the book. I can't give you a cut. But if you want this to be better, but also you might want to write those comments to help to give if you're a writer, to give your impression of how a first line should be better. If you've been watching the previous videos, you know the whole sort of scope of the story, like the broad strokes. Maybe you think there's a different place to start. I'm starting here because it fulfills those requirements of resonating, introducing, and engaging the reader. And that's where I decided to start. Is this as good as other first lines? Probably not. But it's not finished yet. As he repeatedly stabbed a soldier between the plates of its armour, Huxton started to wonder if it was working at all, as his adversary seemed not to notice, and maybe he would need a new plan. Maybe plan's the wrong word. Hang on a second. Good old trusty thesaurus. Maybe he would need a new idea. No, because stabbing someone isn't going to... Maybe he'd need a new deal. No, not new deal. New plan. No. Nothing else works. Okay, cool. We'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching this episode. I hope this has given you some idea about what your first line should be and how to get started on the first line of your book. Again, you don't have to start with the first line. I'm doing it because I think it's a foundation to work off. And now I know how it starts, I can write the next bit and the next bit and the next bit and so on and so forth. I think that there's one other tip, sort of hint I didn't express, is that you do have to choose where your story starts for your first line to obviously matter. I've started it in the place where Fortis and Huxton are inspired to become adventurers, to go out into the world and solve problems. Of course, they think at the beginning the best way to solve a problem is fight it, and they are dissuaded of that notion later on. I don't think there's anywhere else I want to start the story, or could start the story, based on what the theme is like. Think about Harry Potter for a second. Harry Potter, well, there's lots of themes, but the core of the book is a kid learning to be a wizard. That's kind of the theme. So she decided to start it with a prologue, and that first line wasn't going to resonate throughout the whole book, but it just resonated with that first chapter about showing just how ordinary and bland and common the Dursleys were, to that contrasts with the weird and wonderful world you're about to enter. So she decided to start it there because it was the good. That was a contrast to what was coming afterwards. Also, it was an opportunity to introduce the world and who Harry Potter is. In Skullduggery Pleasant, the first line of Skullduggery Pleasant, so I'm just using books that I know. First line of Skullduggery Pleasant is Gordon Edgley's sudden death came as a shock to everyone, not least himself. So that makes sense because, spoiler alert, Gordon's death is the catalyst for finding the thing they need, that finds the thing they need, that helps them, that the villain's looking for, that helps them defeat the villain. So, and it's humorous, so it introduces like the way the book is written. It resonates because what comes next to it is important. And it engages the reader because it's funny. So Derek Landy started there because that's where, like, in Skullduggery Pleasant, before this, Gordon is killed by a guy called Serpine, and before that, Serpine is someone who's was a bad guy. He's like a Nazi who was let off after Nuremberg and then tried and just went straight back to being a secret Nazi, which is what happened after Nuremberg. But he decided not to start there because that's boring. You've got to start with a death. So where you decide to put your first line, at least go back to the point, start at the place where logically, if that didn't happen, nothing else that comes afterwards would happen. From the POV of your main character, you have to think about this. So if Fortis and Huxton hadn't got into this fight, which inspires them to become adventurers, then while all the events of the book would continue anyway, they would just continue without Fortis and Huxton and be less important, because Fortis and Huxton are the catalyst for doing things differently. So, okay, good. Where you start your first line, start it at the point where if you took it out of the book, nothing that precedes would happen the way it happened. Like in Moby Dick, Call Me Ishmael, if you took that scene of Ishmael introducing himself and giving the sort of journal, the history of his life from this point forward, you would never learn about Moby Dick. You'd never see the story of Moby Dick. All those events would still happen, of course, in their own way, without Ishmael influencing them, but you'd never hear of them. In what's the first line of Jack Reacher? I've gone over my time so much. I was arrested in Eno's diner. Yes, so there, if he hadn't been arrested in Eno's diner, nothing else that happens in The Killing Floor, Jack Reacher's first book, would ever happen. He would just, if he hadn't been arrested, he'd just eat his eggs and leave, and he would never be introduced into any of the events of the story that he played a significant role in. I need to choose one more random book. Handmaid's Tale. Handmaid's Tale, first line. First line of we slept in what had once been the gymnasium. Okay, it does the things that a line should do. Anonymous, unsettling tone. But it's not. Oh no, maybe it does. Handmaid's Tale, first chapter. Okay, here's the extract. Okay, so while it's the first line of The Handmaid's Tale does everything it's supposed to do, it resonates, engages the reader, and it sort of introduces, we slept in what had once been the gymnasium. I mean, that, who sleeps in a gymnasium, for crying out loud? That's just something's gone wrong and they have to, so that's engaging the reader. It introduces... it introduces like the unsettling nature of how the main characters are treated in the story in this messed up world. Doesn't introduce the main character there. Well, it doesn't need to. It just introduces the world. Like it I think that covers all the main things of that I said. But I mean, you could have started it after they woke up. We got up, or just do it the next day. Okay. I don't know The Handmaid's Tale that well in book form, so I think it still stands. I think the guideline sort of fits. That put your first line at the moment, referencing the event that without which you wouldn't have the rest of the story. I think that fits. So do that. Thanks for watching. I have to go. I've got 20 minutes overdue. Oh dear. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope this helps you form your first line. Share in the comments how you would change this, and if you wanted, if you think it's good, tell me. And come back as I continue to write this. I've obviously started. Start as I mean to go on. Sorry, I'll do this later. What am I doing this in front of you? Anyway, I'll keep writing for you so you can see how you go from what's in here to what's on there. There. Thank you. There, if you're watching on TikTok. Have a good morning, afternoon, and evening, wherever you are in the world. Goodbye.